What's the richest thing someone has done in front of you? I went to my boss' wedding. The whole thing was just so dang decadent. There were over 1000 ppl, a big butt filmed crane, high budget Bollywood music videos produced of the bride and groom driving luxury cars, multiple wedding cakes, etc. What made me pause though, was when fricking $5 $10 bills started raining from the sky and the guests danced on them. The bills were American. I'm in Canada. 2. I tried to be low-key and grab some, but my GF said it'd look bad as everyone else, sporting expensive looking suits and saris, were ignoring them. Understandably, I was cheesed when I asked for a raise soon after and I was told the company wasn't making enough to justify what I wanted. Of course not, the company had to pay for the wedding. I had just turned 17 a few days prior and had some money saved to buy a piece of crap car for $2k. It's all I could afford to buy myself at the time and I did not want any financial help from my family. After driving it for 10 miles, smoke started to pour out of the hood and the temperature of the car was in the red zone. I let the car cool down, drove another 5 miles, and it happened again. I called my mom and dad for help to no avail, so then I called my grandma, also known as Noni. Well, Noni flipped a crap that I wasn't given a safer, better car from my parents, so she picked me up, gave me the keys to her 2001 Mercedes E320, and had me drive her to the Mercedes dealership where she then bought. This all happened within an hour. I remember thinking at the time, dang, I hope I can be rich enough one day to buy a brand new Mercedes on the spot. Richest thing I ever saw. Love you, Noni. Buy a brand new $60,000 BMW without hesitation. He was a Saudi dude I was tutoring in English and he needed a car, so he just bought one with the same attitude that one would have when buying a gas station sandwich. People with that kind of money are just living in another reality. Saudi guy I know from university got something like $200,000 a month from his family. Unbelievable wealth in that country. So one of my bull's jobs in college was doing door-to-door pamphlet bombing and collecting donations for environmental initiatives in the SF Bay Area. Normally, it's all volunteer stuff, but this time they were hiring people as it was an election year. Normally, it's a goal of $30.50 per day for each person. This girl, who had done this for a year, partnered with me and she was just such a nice girl, but no one was donating despite her charm. I did a few and fared no better. Finally, I knocked on a door and a dude comes out. I do the script kind of half-assed mainly because I was impressed by his sound system in his living room that I had peaked. He showed it off to us, offered us a drink and went off to get his checkbook. He comes back with his wife and she was like, "Oh, let me get my checkbook too." The guy asked us what we normally get per week for this and the girl I was with told him on a good week, around $200, $250. The guy makes a face and was like, "Nah, that can't be right," and hands us a check for $5,000. Then his wife shows up and was like, "You did 5? I'll do 6," and gave us another check but for $6,000. We were speechless and my partner started to cry. The guy also asked us to give him a call by the end of the week so he can follow up with our efforts. I found out later that he was a retired music producer who was super loaded but lived in a normal looking house outside of Oakland. Crazy stuff. Somehow this cracked me up. Wholesome couple trying to one-up each other. My brother is fairly wealthy, not like super rich or anything, but he makes way more money than anyone else in the family. He buys new stuff all the time. Like, he'll replace all the TVs in his house every year or two. They still work perfectly, but there's a new one out that's slightly better and it's apparently enough to get him to buy 4 or 5 TVs. Most of the nice stuff I own is just stuff he gave me after he'd had it for a couple years. I saw someone crash a Lamborghini and 10 minutes later a driver showed up with a Ferrari and buddy drove off while his driver waited for the tow truck. How rich do you have to be to have someone on call to bring you a new luxury car when you're in an accident? GTA Online doesn't count. A long time ago, I worked as security at a casino. I remember once watching a man bet $15k, $3 5k chips, a hand at blackjack and lose literally every hand without any reaction whatsoever. He probably lost $60k in the 5 minutes I sat watching him. Also, There used to be an elderly guy who would come in and have the entire section of the high roller slot machines reserved for himself. He'd spend 10 or 12 hours going down each row pulling handles at between $100 and $500 a spin. He would usually give advance notice that he was coming and there would be servers and attendants specifically assigned to him while he was there. This always humbled me when I think I have some money. There's always someone in Vegas dropping your entire yearly salary on a hand of blackjack, unless you're in the 1%. Delivered a pizza to a hotel. Dude was super drunk and had a bottle of expensive scotch almost finished. Bribed me like $20 every 10 minutes to keep talking to him by literally throwing money onto a chair every few minutes. Let me try to his $15k Rolex and offered me the keys to his classic car for free. Dude was boasting the whole time about owning an oil company too. Turns out he wasn't lying when I looked him up. Still didn't want to risk a millionaire sending lawyers after me when he sobers up and realizes he gave away his car while drunk. Sounds like he's depressed rich. My girlfriend had planned on taking me out for an expensive steak dinner for my birthday one year. This dinner included her father, her brother, and myself. She had intended on paying for me and letting her family who was visiting from out of town pay for themselves. The thing was though, this was not just an Outback steakhouse or whatever. No, this was a full-blown 5-star restaurant with all the trappings, and my country bumpkin redneck butt felt very out of place. Much to her protest though, her father ended up paying for the whole thing. All of us. He insisted. Several hundreds of dollars, and a $200 tip, and he just nonchalantly paid it like no big deal. And incidentally, I had just met the man for the first time a few days prior. I had the best steak I've ever eaten. My first glass of champagne, dessert. The band played Happy Birthday. I got a hug from the owner, and all the servers waited on us like they were butlers. I'd never felt so honored. I remember before we left, her father looked me right in the eyes and said, very calmly and firmly with a smile from across the table, "Happy birthday, sad sheepherder." I heard what he said, but what I think he meant was, take good care of my daughter, in that dad kind of way, or I'm just paranoid. Either way, I was humbled by him paying for all that. I feel shameful just for paying $10 at the Chinese buffet once a week with my coworker. Solved a minor inconvenience by buying a truck. I was loading my car after a Home Depot trip and a few spots over was a couple who just bought several large bags of mulch. Well, they couldn't fit all their mulch in their E-Class Mercedes, so the wife told the husband to go to the car dealership across the street and buy a truck. And that's exactly what the husband did. He walked across the street to a Toyota dealership and bought the first used truck he saw to move the mulch. When I was a kid, around 1975 if I recall correctly, we went on vacation to Florida. My dad's boss was rich and let us stay in one of his condos in Vero Beach. The place was sick. Shag carpeting everywhere again, 1970s, and one of the closets was so big we turned it into a bedroom for one of us kids. He let us use his boat to go fishing. It was the most awesome thing we'd seen, or so we thought. Then we went to his home. It was nearby, somewhere around Sebastian, I think. It was on a private island. We had to have an access card to get through the back gate. Again, 1975. This was some science fiction crap back then. Anyway, we get to the house, and there's shades of shag carpeting we hadn't even dreamed of. Huge windows that looked out on this impossibly green lawn sort of thing. I had no idea what golf was then, but that's what it was. Dude's house backed up to a golf course. A private golf course. On the way through the house we came across this television set that had this weird bunch of numbers running across the screen. It was a stock ticker. Dude had cable TV and a business channel before anyone had anything more than 3 channels. So we had some snacks, some Fresca. Fresca was mind-blowing to 10-year-old me, and went out on the golf course. There was this little river that ran between his property and the one behind his, and he stood there on the green, cigar in hand, and told us about the funniest thing he'd ever seen. A gator again, Florida, had gotten into the river, and his neighbor lady came out of her house, curlers in her hair, broom in her hand, yelled at the gator and tried to shoo it off the property. Almost right on cue, she came out and waved. He waved back and laughed. That's the richest thing I ever saw. I love this memory, especially the shag. It was everywhere luxurious back then. My grandma had it in burnt orange. Refurnish an entire house with brand new, expensive designer furniture, and toss out the old designer furniture on the curb like it was broken down junk. Couches, beds, wardrobes, you name it. The old furniture was only a year old. They'd purchased it all brand new the year before. When I worked as a computer tech, I went out to a house call. I arrived and realized it should have been called an estate call. The place was senselessly large. I go to this guy's office to look at his computer and I needed a pen for something. He opened his desk drawer and asks me if guns made me uncomfortable because he had one in that same drawer. I respond that I think guns are cool. Mild exaggeration. He proceeds to take me to his gun safe. I'd like this 9x9x9 bank vault. So many guns, it was insane. I was obviously impressed. He said, "Oh, you like this stuff? Check out my gun room." I tag along, more curious than interested. Then I see a room that dwarfs any other I've seen in a residential building. There were guns like you wouldn't believe. 50 calories mounted machine guns, small cannons, like every small arm from the Civil War to modern time. Even as a gun novice, I knew enough to be impressed. Crap was crazy. When I worked as a computer tech, I went out to a house call. Those are unforgettable. Yeah, my wife has a virus on her laptop at home. A driver should arrive at your shop in a few minutes. He'll drive you to our house and bring you wherever you want afterwards. I swear it had the effect of throwing a flashbang into my brain. When I was in junior high, a kid I'll call Joe the Fourth moved in around the corner from me, and we got to be friends. His parents were divorced, and he lived with his mom, but had regular visits with his dad. What I didn't realize at the time was that the fact that his last name was plastered all over the city on auditoriums, hospital wings, university buildings, etc., wasn't a coincidence. One day Joe the Fourth invited me to go to his dad's house for dinner. His dad lived in a fairly large old Victorian house in a rather upscale area. This was the kind of house that had dumb waiters and secret passages. It was pretty fun to explore, but I really didn't think much of it. We had dinner, and afterwards, his dad decided we needed some entertainment. So, he got on the phone, and around 15 minutes later, a Spanish guitarist and a flamenco dancer show up and put on a show for us. I realize that's not as showy or ostentatious as casually tossing handfuls of money to a waiter or valet, or things of that nature. However, the idea that he would casually drop hundreds of dollars for a private show just on a whim illustrates just how little money really meant to him. His dad was very laid back. He usually drove an old pickup, and always wore jeans and cowboy boots, and usually a flannel work shirt. To look at him, you'd never guess how wealthy he was. Moral of the story: be nice to people. When I was looking for student accommodation and renting my first flat house share, my partner of the time phoned her dad. "Hey dad, there aren't any nice ones in the area. I like, can you still buy that house we were looking at the other day?" I knew they were rich but thought she was taking the pee. A few weeks later, after staying in a hotel, she moved into her first home. With all of those legally binding Instagram posts, hard work pays off. Finally got my first house, a 2-bed, at 18 in a major city. We have split up since, obviously. There was a cool perk through. I worked for her family at this point and they gave me paid holiday and then paid for me to go on holiday. Turned on their kitchen floor. It was a little cold, so they turned on their heated kitchen floor. I know it's not like buying a new house on whim money or replacing a crashed Lambo money. They probably aren't even all that expensive to install. But it was a random luxury I'd never even known existed. That was my first glimpse into the other reality the wealthy live in. Today I learned heated kitchen floors exist. I am truly amazed. Don't know if this counts, but we were in a pet store visiting a bunny my mum had put a deposit on for my sister. It was too young at this point to be separated from its mother. My sister was petting it and calling it Millie, its soon to be name. This girl around her age comes over and says that she wants the bunny. Pet keepers say no because we have a deposit. Parents pull out a wad of cash and offer to pay over 5x the price of the actual bunny. Sister is scared because she had liked this bunny from 1 week old. Pet keepers say no again and leave. When we come back again, the bunny is missing. Pet keepers tell us that they moved it because the family came back in and tried to take the bunny. They were buttholes. I sold just over $28k in custom wheels and tires for a Ferrari F430. Usually deposit would be $500 for special orders. I asked for $1,000 because I'd never ordered custom wheels for a client before. I expected to be starting a payment plan for him. Buddy went to his Range Rover, grabbed a black duffel bag, came back and tossed it on the counter like a drug deal. I told him to have a seat while I went to the office to count it. The F430 is one of my favorite cars and the guy and I got along real well, so he promised me I would get to drive it. Then we found out I couldn't work on it or I'd void his warranty. He traded in for a newer McLaren and I still see that silver 430 from time to time and wish that man's dang warranty had been up lol. Should have recited the Magnuson-Moss Act, the federal law that requires manufacturers to honor their warranty even if aftermarket parts are installed. Back in high school, a girl I knew was so unhappy with the current car she had. Wrong color, wrong year, wrong model according to her. The next day, she got a new car that was more to her liking. A girl I knew in high school said that she had some issues with her family, so she took her backpack and booked a flight to Dubai, and the furthest place I could go when I was angry with my parents was my bedroom. Was in a small size little bar for breakfast in SF. In comes a guy who orders the same as I did, pancakes with coffee. We finish around the same time and I leave my regular 15% tip. Service and the food wasn't special, but whatever. I'm a European and I know it's their salary basically. But this other guy starts counting his $100 dollar bills. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He smiles, shuffles them together, puts his empty cup on top and leaves. His bill was about $20 or something. He paid $1,000. I mean, I just stayed to witness the reaction from the waitress. She was so happy with this guy leaving an almost $200 tip. I kid. I did not touch her money. She was deliriously happy and started jumping up and down as her colleagues came in wondering what was going on. A rich woman had a flat tire and didn't know how to fix it, so I pulled over to help her. When I was done we got talking and whoops, she so happened to drop her wallet and it landed at my feet. She said keep it. I felt so bad, I said no I can't. She insisted. See, I get home and doing the wallet. $987 was in there with ungodly amounts of change. This was last month as well. That $987 paid off one of my college loans. I will be honest, I cried a little because of this person. Oh boy, I worked at a burrito place during my uni years. I worked with a guy who did not need to work for money. He came from a very rich family who was putting him through uni, gave him an allowance, etc. etc. I never figured out why he bothered to work. It wasn't like he loved slinging burritos, and he sure as heck wasn't there to gain life experience or bring joy to people's lives. Anyway, a lot of things about him screamed rich, but here's the two that I still am about. 1. He gets home from a night out, doesn't have his key, siblings aren't answering calls, throws rock through a glass door to gain entry to the house, pays for emergency repair the next morning before parents come home. 2. Night out, we're drunk. We decide to stop by work and say hi to everyone working. He slips and falls face first into a metal chair, chips 2 front teeth in half, picks up his teeth off the floor, continues with night, goes to the dentist the next day for emergency dental work, wasn't worried at all. I'm glad he did work though. Hopefully it teaches him independence and to be kind and polite to workers. Or it was a trust requirement, but either way someone made sure he'd function. My wife and I went down to Cabo San Lucas to visit one of our friends who had started dating this rich German guy. They were one of the sponsors of a film festival, so we got to hang out and see a few celebs. But what I remember most is one of the after parties at a new hotel that hadn't officially opened up yet. The event was being held outside on hotel grounds, and at one point, rich dude says we should go inside and check it out. We walk up to the door where a young gentleman is standing, and when he sees us coming he says, I'm sorry, but we are not open to the public, at which point, rich dude says we are not the public and blows by him, pushing open the door. You could see the panic in the kid's eyes, and then everyone on the inside scrambles around until the owner comes down the stairs and says, insert rich dude's name. So good to see you. My wife and I are just like, yeah, we're with him. So freaking surreal. One time after a night out I was in line to grab some pizza at a slice bar. In this place there are always lots of different types of slices you can choose from, usually more than 10. So I'm in line behind this group of about 6 and when we get to the counter one of the guys goes to order for the whole group. He walks up and without even really looking at the slices or putting any thought into it at all he just says give me 6 slices of every type. He said it with such carelessness, like dropping $300-ish on pizza was no big thing at all. Also he wasn't completely hammered or anything, he was completely aware of what he was doing. It was just the complete almost bored mundane way he bought up 60 slices of pizza that screamed he was rich off more than even the $sign he spent. He ended up giving a lot of the pizza away to other people in the shop, since he ordered way more than his group would eat, so that was pretty cool. Trashier example. I worked at a bar restaurant as a host. Spot doubled as a tourist bar during the day and the place for townies to get trashed in the evening. This dude would come in on Sundays and drink Heineken, smoke Newports and play scratch tickets. He looked like a plumber, always wore the same shirt and had basically no teeth. One day he's in with his buddies and he doesn't want to walk to the gas station to buy tickets. He hands me a $100 and asks me to go buy him tickets. Says he'll give me $10 and a percentage of whatever he won if he hit it big. I buy him the tickets. He wins some. Has me take the winnings to buy more tickets for another $10. The cycle repeats. He gave me $200 to walk a block over and over again. End of the night he wins $5 grand. Gives me $500 off the top. Turns out the man's a millionaire slumlord. And does that every week blowing thousands on scratch cards. Maybe he's trying to go legit. My friend did this before. We go to school overseas in Japan and I won't divulge much of what he does for work in his family business but they're really well off. Anyways, right after we started school together I take him out to show him around some areas in Japan. He wants to get some high-end beef and crap. I tell him the price and that I couldn't afford it really. He tells me and another friend that it's no problem and he'd pay for it. We proceeded to eat nearly $1 KUSD in A5 beef and they drank some high-end wine while he treated me to some high-end steak cause I'm not a wine guy. I don't let his wealth get in the way though as I'll try to do little things to pay him back for stuff he does for me. We go to movies a lot so I tend to try and pay for his popcorn and drinks as he often pays for my meals since I'm always ordering and doing the paying for us even on his money. I've posted this before but when I worked at a high-end retail store, a guy came in with his 2 kids who were both around 12-13. I struck up a conversation with him while helping him grab a new set of luggage and he told his kids, go get whatever you need for the next few months. Bring it back here to this guy so he can get paid. I don't remember their exact purchase amount but the commission bump on the check was more than my tax return that year. Then when I go to help them take all their things out, the guy announces that he drove his Ferrari convertible so he was gonna have to summon the Wicked Witch aka call his ex-wife to bring the Porsche so that they could haul all their merchandise off. A client of mine went to get a relatively new car serviced. While he was waiting in line to hand off the keys he looked at a brand new Mercedes they had on the floor. When it was his turn he just told the guy behind the counter he'd be taking that new $120 K-Merc and they could just service his old car and sell it for him. Poor guy behind the counter was caught completely off guard and thought it was a joke. My client quickly demanded someone who was interested in making a dang sale. 10 minutes later he did get to drive off in the new Merc. Poor bastard wasn't ready for that kind of money. Friend bought a 72-inch TV. This was when 72 inches TVs were just out. His wife hated it. Bought a 52-inch one the next day. Gave the 72-inch TV to his dad. Went to a lounge bar. The owner friend said everything was on him. 9 girls came in to entertain. Was a good night. Strangely the few celeb people I hung around with were the most frugal. Guess when you're that rich you don't have to prove to anyone. Strangely the few celeb people I hung around with were the most frugal. Guess when you're that rich you don't have to prove to anyone. I remember seeing Charles Barkley interviewed on Oprah when he wrote his autobiography, and he mentioned the worst thing about going out for the night with Michael Jordan, I think, was that Jordan refuses to tip and it's just embarrassing. Decided to do a shoestring budget backpacking tour in southern India. My budget was like $150 a week. Friend decides to join spontaneously and his dad won't let him stay at a hostel or cheap hotel. He lived on $150 a day. Not the richest thing anyone has ever done, but it was fucking awkward for both of us. My sister's friend's family is super rich. She got a brand new BMW X6M SUV for her birthday. I was out with my sister and her friend to get food and her friend sped out of the parking spot and accidentally backed into a pole while leaving the parking lot, while ultimately ripping off the entire rear bumper and didn't even care. She simply said it's fine. My dad can afford to fix it. B. My car cost $26k and I get nervous when I hit a curb but ultimately didn't do any real damage to it. I'd be flipping my crap if I ripped off a bumper in a car of that cost. Sure, a ripped bumper isn't the most expensive repair in the world, but that SUV alone cost more than what my parents make per year combined. I went on a deployment to Qatar during the summer of 2011 with the US Air Force. During our day off for the week, a coworker and I went off base and visited the local mall. It took a few minutes to find an open spot in the parking lot and start walking toward the building. As we're nearing the entrance, a neon orange and black Bugatti pulls into the shaded overhang and a well-dressed kid hops out of the passenger side door. While the kid immediately starts walking into the building in front of us, the driver pops the hood. Storage is in the front for a mid-engine car, and starts pulling out those support poles with built-in retractable straps that you can hook together to make a queue line. He just ropes off the car exactly where it's parked in the overhang, then follows the kid into the mall. My buddy and I raise our eyebrows, but continue into the mall and enjoy that sweet air conditioning. After walking around for a few minutes, we head towards the food court to grab some ice cream. Lo and behold, the same kid and his driver are in the line in front of us. The kid finishes making his order, then pull out his wallet. In the most brazen "I'm richer than you" fashion, this kid flashes his billfold and takes forever to pull a single 500 rial note. Ratio to the dollar was about 0.25 at the time, so it's roughly $130. When that's literally what every one of the 20 or so bills in his wallet were. I finish my order, pay, and start enjoying a waffle cone. That's when I see the kid pitch his ice cream, with like 90% of the cone remaining, straight into the trash. Must be lovely to have your personal driver haul you to the local mall, then take longer to park the car than what you spent attempting to eat ice cream. Rich Gulf Arabs are absolutely intolerable. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.